Come, my friend, sit with me a moment. I want to read you 3 verses, just 3. They are the oldest verses in all of Scripture about rest, and I think most of us have read them too fast to hear what they are actually saying. Here they are. Listen slowly. The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the 7th day, God finished the work that he had been doing, and he ceased on the 7th day from all the work that he had done. And God blessed the 7th day and declared it holy, because on it he ceased from all the work of creation that God had done. Genesis, chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. Now, did you hear it? There is a word in that passage, a small word, that most people walk right past. Not a hidden word. It is sitting there in plain sight, right on the surface of the text. But we read these verses so quickly, so familiarly, that we do not let them land. Before I point to that word, let me ask you something first, my friend. When you rest, when the week is finally over, when the phone goes quiet, when you stop, do you feel peace? Or do you feel something more like waiting? Waiting for Monday, waiting for the next task, waiting for the rest to be over so you can be useful again. I ask this not to make you feel guilty. I ask it because I think it is the most honest description of how many people in our time actually experience the end of their week. We stop, but we do not arrive anywhere. We pause, and the pause feels borrowed, something that will be taken back soon enough. If that is familiar, my dear one, I want you to know this. Torah has been addressing this condition since the very first week of all existence. And the answer it gives is not rest more or work less. The answer is something different, something older, something about what rest actually is. And it begins with that small word, the word the rabbis spent centuries inside. Stay with me. Now, let me tell you a little story. The oldest story the sages ever told about this day. It comes from the Midrash, from Bereishit Rabbah, the great rabbinic commentary on the book of Genesis. Chapter 10, verse 9. The sages are sitting with the same 3 verses we just read, and they are bothered by something. Here is the problem that bothers them. Look again at verse 2. On the 7th day God finished the work. The 7th day. Not the 6th, the 7th. But on the 7th day, God was resting. That is what the very same verse tells us. So what exactly was being finished on the 7th day? This is the kind of question that the rabbis lived for. Not a surface question, a question that, when you press it, opens something underneath. Bereishit Rabbah brings a parable. It says, "This is comparable to a king who built a magnificent wedding hall. He constructed it carefully. He decorated it. He furnished it. He stood back and looked at what he had made, and everything was beautiful. Everything was in its place. Everything was ready, but something was missing. The bride had not yet entered." And the Midrash says, so too with the world. 6 days of creation, light and sky and sea and land, trees bearing fruit, birds over the water, fish in the deep, animals in the field, and finally, on the 6th day, a human being, made in the image of the one who made all of it. God looked at everything he had made and declared it in the words of Genesis, Tov me'od, very good. The wedding hall was built. It was beautiful. It was ready. But something was missing. What was missing? The rabbis give one answer, quiet, almost simple, and it is the answer that changes everything. What the world was lacking was menucha, rest. When Shabbat came, menucha came. And then, only then, says the Midrash, was the work truly and finally complete. Sit with that for a moment, my friend, because this is not a small teaching. The Midrash is not saying that God rested because he was exhausted. The Midrash is saying that rest itself was the one thing the world did not yet have. Menucha was not the absence of work. Menucha was the final act of creation. The world was incomplete without it. 6 days of light and life and beauty, and something was still missing, until Shabbat arrived. This is the word I want to open for you. Menucha. Most translations give you rest, and that is not wrong, but it is thin. It does not carry what the Hebrew carries. Menucha is not the silence of exhaustion. It is not the quiet of someone who has stopped because they cannot go on. Think of it this way. Think of the stillness in a room when the last person who needed to speak has finished speaking. The words are still in the air, and everyone present knows that what needed to be said was said. No one reaches to fill the silence. It is complete. That kind of quiet, the stillness of something that has arrived at its full end. That is closer to menucha. The Midrash says the world lacked that. 6 days of creation, and the world had never once had a moment of standing still and being known as complete. Until the 7th day. Until God brought menucha into the world. And here is where the Torah opens its door for us, my friend. Go back to verse 1. The very first word of this passage, Vayehu, the heaven and the earth were finished. The Hebrew root here, kala, is specific. It does not simply mean to stop. It means to bring something to its full end, to reach the point at which there is nothing left to add, nothing that would make it more complete than it already is. This is the word a craftsman uses when a piece of work is done in the deepest sense. Not I stopped working on it, but it is finished. It lacks nothing. And then verse 2, Vayishbot, and he ceased. The root here is Shabbat, the same root that gives us Shabbat. And Shabbat does not mean to fall down. It does not mean to collapse. It means to deliberately cease, to choose, with full awareness, to be done. There is a difference, and it is not a small difference, between stopping because you cannot continue and stopping because you have decided you are finished. One is defeat. The other is an act of sovereignty. The first says, I have nothing left. The second says, I am satisfied that what was made is complete, and I set it down. God chose to be done. On the 7th day, with full awareness, God set the week down. That is Vayishbot. And when God set the week down and blessed it and made it holy, the world was complete in a way it had not been on the evening of the 6th day. I'll be honest with you, my friend. I have read these 3 verses many times in my life. Many times. And for years, I read them simply as instruction. Work 6 days, rest on the 7th, a pattern to follow. That reading is not wrong, but I think it is only part of what is being said, because these verses are not only telling us what God did, they are telling us what rest is, what it actually is at its root, in its nature. And what they tell us is this: rest is not the interruption of meaning. Rest is not the pause between meaningful things. Rest is itself a form of completion. The world was not complete without it. 6 days of goodness, and the world still lacked something. And that something was not more work. It was menucha. It was the day of standing still and knowing that what had been made was good. There is one more thing to see in these verses. Verse 3, and God blessed the 7th day and declared it holy. Vayakadesh. He declared it holy. In Hebrew, kadosh, holiness, means set apart, distinguished from everything that surrounds it, designated for something that the ordinary cannot carry. In the entire creation story, across 6 days of bringing forth light, sky, sea, land, living creatures, and the human being, nothing is called kadosh. Not the light of the 1st day, not the human being of the 6th. The 7th day is the first thing in all of Torah to receive that word. And what makes it holy is menucha. Not productivity, not achievement, not greatness of any kind. What makes a thing holy, in the very first use of that word in all of Scripture, is the act of ceasing, of completing, of standing still, and knowing that what was made was good. Now, I have to be honest with you, my friend. Most people read this, and they miss something gentle. We have been taught, by our culture, by our habits, by the way most of us were raised, to think of rest as what comes after things have been hard. A reward for surviving the week, a recovery before the next one. And this is so deeply embedded in how we live that most of us do not even notice it anymore. We say, I need a break. I need to recharge. I need to recover. All of these are real needs, my friend. I am not dismissing tiredness. Tiredness is real. But the order Torah gives us is different. In Torah, the first Shabbat in history came before anything was hard, before any struggle, before the long, difficult story of human beings trying and falling and trying again. The first Shabbat came when the world was new and whole, and it came not as a remedy for exhaustion, but as the crowning act of creation. God was not tired. God was finished, and those are not the same thing. This distinction between being tired and being finished might be the most important thing I want to say tonight. When we rest because we are tired, we are resting by subtraction. Something was taken from us, and we need it returned. We are filling back up. The rest is always temporary, always instrumental. We rest in order to work again. The rest serves something beyond itself. But menucha is rest by arrival. You are not filling up. You are setting something down and acknowledging that it was worth something, that it is complete as it is. The difference in your body when you do this, when you genuinely set a week down rather than simply stopping until the next one begins, that difference is real. It is what the Midrash is pointing at when it says the world lacked menucha. This is why I think so many people in our time cannot truly rest. They stop, but the rest is anxious. The phone goes down and comes back in 4 minutes. The vacation becomes planning the return. Because underneath is a belief, usually unspoken, that the rest has not been earned, that something is still undone, that the bridal canopy is beautiful, but the bride has not yet entered. The Midrash tells us the bride is menucha, and menucha does not come from doing more. It comes from the decision to declare something complete, to set the week down, to say, in whatever form feels honest, what was done this week was done. It is enough. We are waiting for everything to be finished before we allow ourselves to rest. And everything is never finished. There is always one more email, one more conversation, one more thing that would make the rest feel earned. But Torah says, the rest itself completes the work. The seventh day is not what comes after the 6 days of meaning. The seventh day is what makes the 6 days meaningful. So what do we do with this, you and I, on a Tuesday morning? 3 things, small things that will not change your life in a week, but practice slowly over many Shabbatot, things that might change how you hold every week you are given. The first is this: change one word. This Friday, when Shabbat begins, or whenever your week's end comes, try not to say, I finally get a rest. Try saying something different, even quietly, even only to yourself. Try saying, I am arriving. This is not only a poetic shift, it is a directional one. I finally get a rest positions you as someone fleeing something hard. I am arriving positions you as someone coming towards something complete. Shabbat is a destination, not a refuge. That distinction lives in the text itself. God did not flee the 6th day. God arrived at the 7th. Vayishbot, not collapsed, but ceased. A deliberate ceasing, a sovereign arrival. One word. Try it once and see if the evening feels different. The second thing is this: before your Shabbat begins, read Vayishulu out loud. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Vayishulu hashamayim v'haaretz. The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. Just that sentence. Sit with the word finished for 60 seconds. Do not add anything to it. Do not qualify it. Do not reach for the next thing. Let it be complete as it is. Many communities recite Vayishulu on Friday evening during the Kiddush, and this is precisely why. Not as formality, as declaration. A community standing together and saying, the week is complete. Not because every task is done, because we have chosen to set it down as though it were. The third thing, and this one is the quietest, is to practice completion during the week itself. Not productivity, not efficiency, completion. There is a difference. One email answered fully, not halfway. One conversation brought to its real end, not left trailing. One task carried to its finish, and then set down, acknowledged, released. Menucha is not only what happens on the seventh day, it is a capacity. And like any capacity, it grows through small, repeated use. You cannot arrive at a full Shabbat menucha if you have spent 6 days never completing anything. The seventh day inherits the 6. The Midrash says the world lacked menucha. I think many of us lack it too. Not because we do not rest, we rest. But we rest without completing. We stop without setting down. And so the week begins again, the way it ended. The bridal canopy is always beautiful, always waiting, and we are always arriving a day late. 3 things, my friend. 1 word changed on Friday evening. 1 verse read before you begin your rest. 1 act completed each day this week, set down cleanly, acknowledged. That is all. It is not a program. It is not a system. It is a practice, and practices take time. It won't change your life in a week, but it might change it slowly, and that is almost always better. Before you go, let me share one last thing. I want to return to the parable from Bereishit Rabbah, the king who built the wedding hall, who furnished it and decorated it and stood back and saw that everything was ready. And what was missing? The bride. The Midrash says the bride is menucha, and when she entered, when the 7th day arrived and rest was finally present in the world, the wedding hall became what it was always meant to be, not just a beautiful room, a home. 6 days of creation, my friend, light and life and beauty, and all of it was waiting for one thing, not more greatness, not more accomplishment. It was waiting for the moment of standing still and knowing that what had been made was good. The 7th day is blessed whether you enter it or not. The menucha is there, poured in at the beginning of the world, before anything was difficult, before any of us had made any mistakes. God built it into the structure of time itself. Every 7th day, without exception, that blessing arrives. The bridal canopy is ready. The candles are lit. The table is set. All you have to do, and I know this is harder than it sounds, is arrive. Not perfectly, not without distraction. Just put the week down, step through the door, and let yourself be present in a moment that was made holy before you were born. My friend, I do not know what your week was like. I do not know how tired you are. But I want to say something that I think these 3 verses have been saying for 3,000 years, and that we have been walking past in our hurry. You do not have to earn your rest. If someone came to mind as you listened tonight, someone who is very tired, someone who cannot seem to truly stop, send them this. That is all. Just send them this. May you walk in shalom, dear neighbor.